Hello guys, and welcome to the channel. So the piece that's in front of you is or I should say my representation of Leo, the Zodiac sign. I wanted to have something that I could start working on to get me back into digital art. I've practiced it here, there, a little bit, but I never really took the time to take it seriously. I never took the time to develop my skills. I've had a few different tablets in the past that I've bought, and they were like the really cheap ones. Like back when I first heard about Wacom, I had bought, I think it was like a little 12-inch square tablet that was just like straight up the tablet and the pen, and you plug it in to your computer and you stare at your computer while you're trying to draw on this tablet. And that's the first type of tablet that I ever had. And I remember kind of reminiscing a little bit about that small little tiny tablet that I had that I absolutely hated. None of my stuff ever came out great. It was so jaggedy. The line work was not smooth. The fill-in colors, it looked like I just, took the fill tool and just filled everything, and then it was just pixelated, and I wasn't happy with it because the lines were wonky, and I gave up. And then I dove into traditional art. I started art back when I was a child, when I was really super young. I'm thinking maybe like 5, 6, around there. My dad got me started in art when I was very young. And I mean, you start out like all the kids do with the stick people, and you got a round head and the stick for the body. And it kind of started from there. And it helped that I had a wild imagination, because if you have a crazy imagination and you love to draw, there is literally nothing going to stop you from creating what's in your mind. I mean, it can be aliens on another planet, it could be dragons, it could be a princess that rides on a dragon that gets eaten by a fish. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. But I remember that after getting so frustrated with this tiny little Wacom tablet, that I dove back into my traditional art. And I started developing my skills as a traditional artist a little bit more, because I watched a lot of artists on YouTube. My father's an artist. I had a lot of friends that were artists, and their traditional work just looked so amazing. And mine would fail in comparison. I remember thinking to myself, like, what am I doing wrong? Why is my work not looking like theirs? Why is my work not the highest quality like theirs is? And that's not to say that, they're not amazing and that their quality wasn't great. But at the time, when we were young, my friends and I, the level of, in my mind, awesomeness that their pieces were just because they had developed their skills more than I had. I was still very young in art, and I still hadn't gotten my skills sharpened like I would have if I sat and I practiced more. So the older I got, and I know I'm going to keep saying older, but to kind of paint a perspective for you. So my first settings were in grade school. And I mean, I had some skill, enough to where my third grade teacher used to love it when I would bring her art. I would show her. My fourth grade teacher was a really big artist. She practiced all the time. She drew, she painted. She would bring stuff in so that those of us that loved art could see it. And she would encourage us to practice, so much so that we had actual art books in the back of the room that we could go and pick it up and look at the different techniques and practice. And she would have like, draw these cars or whatever, and here's the steps. Well, I would just like skip all the steps and go to the last piece, and I would draw what I saw. And I'd get kind of close. I mean, my car looked wonky. It looked like a train hit it. But I mean, in my eyes, third grader, fourth grader, I was like, hey, I got some pretty good skills. Fast forward into high school, and I had a few art friends whose art was just amazing in my mind. Compared to my skills, their art was so much better. And I used to sit down and I would talk to them and I would ask them questions and how'd you get so good and how did you get these skills and you're just amazing and I'll never be this good. And I had a friend who sat down and was like, yeah, you can draw this stuff. You can get to this level. You can get past this level of awesomeness. I was like, well, I don't see how. I'm crappy. And they're like, well, don't look down on your art. There's such a thing as critiquing your own art to progress in your style, but you have to practice. These things, these skills take time, and you have to develop them as you progress within your art. And the other thing that you'll notice is that your style will start to come out. And if you don't know exactly what your style is yet, that's totally okay too, because that will develop as well. And so I would talk to these friends of mine that were just a little bit older than me, and we would discuss art and how do I get better. And it just boiled down to practice. And then after I graduated, and now that I'm a young adult, almost 30 years old, I sat down and I practiced, and I do fairly good traditional art, in my opinion. Um, do I have room for improvement? Yes. But as I started to develop my skills as an artist, I took on the thought of progress. Progress, not perfection. And I would tell myself that because I would look at a piece and it would not be great, but for what it was okay. And then I would sit down and say, I would look at my piece and say, what can I do to this piece to make it better? Well, part of the body wasn't right. So the proportions were off. So I would have to pull back out my reference and I would look at my reference and I would look at the piece that I drew and how does it match up? How does it look? And it would look okay, but like the hand was off or the arm was off or the leg was too long. So these are small little critiques that I would give myself, all for progress, not perfection. Because as you develop your skills, your art will get better. And that's kind of the thing I've had to keep in my brain was, hey, look, I'm not perfect, but how do I get closer to perfect? No art piece is ever going to be spot on 1000% and above perfect. There's always something that an artist can look at their piece and go, yeah, but this is wrong in there. Nobody else will notice it. But us as artists, we are our biggest critics. So not only was I being my biggest critic, um, but then I would look up different videos on YouTube and I would say what different art styles were out there. This was around the time where I started wanting to find what exactly my style was. And I kind of have an idea of it now. As a kid growing up, I read a lot of comic books. My dad has a bunch of them. So I would look at the art style in comic books. And then I love anime. I would read anime, or I would read mangas and watch anime, and I would practice that. And I'd practice comic book style. Comic book style is it's a little bit closer to realism as far as like proportions and muscle structure and things like that go. But it's still dabbling and dipping its toes into cartoon-ish style. And so as somebody who grew up with both of these styles in her life, I came to realize that my style is somewhere in between comic book ishly realism and kind of anime, but not anime. And so I seen this and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to run with it. I'm going to go with it. And I started developing my style and practicing traditional art more and more. And I've seen myself get better. So now here's where we get into me practicing my digital art. After I kind of dabbled a lot in my traditional art, I decided to get this, I think it's a Huon. I really don't know how to say it. I will do my best to find a link for you guys so you can go and check it out later. But I kind of would practice on it a little bit here and there, and I still really wasn't that happy with my digital art. But as I'm growing in my art style and I'm growing in my skills, I've kind of wanted to start being able to make prints and stickers and a bunch of different stuff that would be really, really cute. Well, I'm working on, besides this Zodiac series, because there will be a video for each of the Zodiacs. I'm going to try to upload every Friday night or Saturday morning, just once a week for now, because my schedule at my job is very wonky. So for now, I'm just picking one video a week to upload to my YouTube. And this is going to be the start of my digital art. And as I was working on this piece, and just kind of, at the beginning of this, I struggled so hard because the lines weren't coming out right. It was still kind of wonky. I couldn't get the eyes to match, so I ended up just getting the selection tool, selecting the part that I wanted, which actually happened to be both the eye and the eyebrow, because I kind of disliked the way the whole thing looked. So what I did was I copied the layer, which just copied the selection part, flipped it, and moved it to the other side of her face. I mean, I can't do that with traditional art, but digital, there's a little room for push and squish. Yeah, push and squish, that's professional. But as this is going, I looked at this towards the end of it and I fixed the background. It was too granulated looking to be a space background or a galaxy background. So I had to fix it. But after I was done with this piece, I was really happy with it. Now, are there things that I could totally fix? Yes. But again, I'm striving for progress, not perfection. And so this piece kind of started coming together a little bit better. Just kind of going to talk about the color scheme a little bit. Obviously, Leo is the sun or the lion. It's kind of represented in both ways. I did a lot of looking up different stuff with Leo. I am also a Leo, so that's mainly the reason why I started with Leo. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of for myself, throwing it out there. But I wanted it to be warm colors. So the hair is red because, sun, red, yellows, oranges. That's kind of the color scheme that I picked. It just so happens that I also have red hair. So I'm like, no, this is not me. And I kind of wanted to take the Zodiacs and twist them a little bit to where they were like goddesses instead of just like, here's a lady, here's a chick for Leo, here's a chick for Sagittarius, here's a chick for, you know what I mean? I was like, I kind of want to make them into goddesses because I like fantasy like that. So that's what I'm going to do. And I did. And to be honest, I'm very, very happy with the way this came out. My lines could totally be way more smooth than they are now. And some of them are still a little wonky. I have to still practice my thickness of lines and where I want the shadows to be. So I'll emphasize those lines a little more. I definitely have to work on getting my arm to move in the ways that I want them to when I'm drawing on my tablet. But one thing I did find with line art was that if you turn up your stabilization on your pen or your pencil or whatever the tool is that you're using while you're doing your line art, it helps a little bit. The higher up you go, the slower your line is. So if you draw a circle, your cursor will be ahead of that line. And you just kind of fiddle with it until you figure out which one is the way that you like it. And that's kind of what I did. And I don't know what the order will be exactly for the rest of this series, but I know the next one that I'm working on is Virgo, and that's only because my best friend is a Virgo. So I have a friend and myself that's a Leo. My best friend's a Virgo, and then the rest, I don't know. I might see what you guys have to say, what you guys want us to do as far as the rest of the zodiacs is concerned. And for her clothing, I wanted it to look kind of like back in the Greek mythology, the way that the clothing looked. It flowed beautifully. It looked silky. I think some of them were silks, but I wanted it to look elegant. I mean, if this is supposed to be the goddess of the sun, I wanted her to look the part. But I wasn't quite sure on how to do the fabrics, how I really wanted the folds to look. So I went on Pinterest and I found some references. And I usually, when I try to find references for my pieces that I'm using, if I don't have the particular cloth to use myself as a reference, I will go to Pinterest and I will find, this is going to sound weird, but I will find live people. I don't really like going off of drawings of something because then you can't get a accurate representation of portions or the way actual fabric lays or folds if somebody else draws it. But if you see it on an actual human, you can see the way that the fabric interacts with the body and the body positioning. So that's what I did. And it kind of helped a little bit. I seen a couple styles and I actually really needed it for the chain that was on her shoulders that was holding on to the fabric because I was struggling with it a little bit. And I had to fix those chain links a couple times in my pieces, but using reference is probably one of the best things that you can do when practicing. It's not cheating. Using a reference is not cheating at all. Because how else are you going to get the proportions right? How are you going to draw a hand unless you look at your own? You know what I mean? If you're looking at a girl sitting on a chair versus just trying to picture a chair without having that reference to look at, you're going to have a little bit harder time on knowing where the knees bend, how the hip bends, how the back is in relation to the back of the chair, or is she on a stool? Are they sitting in a beanbag chair? Like there's so many things that come into play with angles, and so reference is probably one of the better things that you can do when you're practicing. And that's what I've come to realize over the years. I used to be the one that was like, I'll just come up with it all in my head and I don't need to use a reference. Well, I was wrong. And I use reference more now than I ever have, which I think is one of the benefiting factors of my art getting a little bit better because I use those references and I look at what I'm drawing and I look at the reference and I can get a little bit more accurate than as opposed to me not using a reference. References are there to help you get everything in the right spot. But anyway, guys, I'm done rambling. I promise I'm done rambling. um, I will do my best. I'm looking at different avenues of being able to get this into a print. I have a few other pieces that I want to make into prints as well. I actually have Fortune's Favor is a video that I have. I had added it a few weeks ago to the channel, but I want to get Fortune's Favor as a print. And then there's a beautiful forest elf that I have and a dancing galaxy girl that I want to get into prints. I'm working on getting some things put together before I get my Patreon launched. I want to wait on that a little bit, but there's some things that will be coming to the channel. Like I said, Zodiacs are going to be my first series. And then I will be so excited to introduce you to my world of Forbidden. Forbidden is a book that I am writing myself. And what I want to do is be able to bring you guys on my journey through the land of Rithma. I want you guys to meet Jade and Taka and all the other characters. I've been working on this book for years, guys. Years, literally years. And I'm not done with it yet. But that's only because I've read it, reread it, wrote it again, deleted it, hated it, rewrote it. The only thing that has legitimately stayed the same was the characters. But the storyline has changed. But what I'm working on now with the book, I absolutely love it. Um, it's it's one of my passion projects, I guess is what you can call it. I've been working on it since I was in grade school. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that onto the channel, and we'll do some character design, some character development um, of the main characters and side characters of Forbidden. And I want to bring you guys along with me on this journey because it's been so amazing working on something that I'm passionate about and that I absolutely love. So I can't wait for you guys to see that. I I'm so ecstatic about the things that I'm working on in the background that I want to bring to you guys. I want to bring to the channel. Um, I want to be able to enjoy this with you, and I want you to enjoy it along with me. And I hope you guys are as excited as I am. But if you've made it this far, go ahead and give me a like and a subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned for some more weirdness, because that is the word that will describe CT Creates in a bundle. But thank you guys so much for hanging out, and let me know what you think about this piece in the comments. I will definitely try to get all the things linked in the description box below so that you can see what I was working with, and I will check you all out in the next one.